Hello and welcome to Beyond the Noise, the podcast series from PRWeek. I'm John Harrington, the editor of PRWeek UK. Before we start, a quick word about the upcoming Purpose Awards, which take place on Friday the 6th of June in central London. This isn't any prize-giving event. The Purpose Awards celebrates campaigns that are making real change and the organisations behind them. So whether you're an award entrant, a shortlisted nominee, or simply want to show your support, do come along. Tickets are selling fast. Visit purposeawards.co.uk for more. Hope to see you there. Today's show is all about recruitment in PR from the point of view of agency employers. What big trends are they seeing in the hiring process? What makes a good candidate? And what advice would they give to PR job seekers at the moment? Joining me is Jenny Pape, Head of Talent and Development at Blurred, which recently picked up an amazing 7 awards for its workplace policies at the PRWeek People and Places Awards. Belated congratulations, Jenny, on your wins. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Very welcome. Our other guest is Mary Harding, Joint CEO at Tangerine Comms, employee-owned agency based in Manchester that's also well regarded as an employer. Hi, Mary. Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Good. Likewise. Thanks to you as well for coming along. So before we start, I just want to say we're keen to have a follow-up to this episode, speaking to people who've recently been through or perhaps going through the PR recruitment process themselves. If this is you, drop me a line if you'd like to take part. I'm on john.harrington@haymarket.com. Okay, so let's get stuck into questions. First question from me then, what are your biggest hiring needs at the moment? So specifically, what are the most common types of job roles that you've been looking to fill, say, since the start of the year? Jenny, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. This year, we haven't been hiring constantly, to be honest. We're a business of 30, so we've only had a couple of roles and they've been kind of mid-weight level roles. My role is a little different though, which is why I can probably add a little bit more value to that question. I hire for our clients as well and other brands. So that has had some movement as well this year, which has typically been contracts and perm across both ends. Level-wise, I would say mid-level. There has been slightly less senior hires, and I can kind of detail about that a little bit later, but that has been my main kind of focus. We also have, at Blurred specifically, we have cohort model, which is additional support that we pull upon as and when we need for projects. So I'm always talking to people about the cohorts, and that's actually been more on the creative side because we've been leaning into more campaign activation work. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixture from agency in-house and also for client work at the moment.
Great. And Mary, how about you? What have been your biggest employee needs recently?
One of the key things to say is that there is no significant trend with any of this. It really is dependent on the time of year, what's happening, what the market is doing, obviously new biz wins, etc., and things like that. But I suppose to answer your question directly, our kind of primary hiring needs has been more associate director level and above. Certainly for the last few months. So as you well know, it's always quite challenging finding those types of levels. But it does go in peaks and troughs in terms of when we're hiring and when we're not. We have been trying very many different routes of hiring, very much leaning on our freelance model as well, which is proving quite successful. So yeah, primarily associate director and above, but it depends on what position that we're looking for, into which area of the business that we're looking for. So it could be very different from a creative side of things to when we're obviously looking for client services.
Interesting. Why do you think you're looking for those more sort of senior, mid to senior type roles at the moment?
It's just where we are at this stage of a business at the moment. I think we have gone through quite fast growth over the last 5 years. And we very much focus on our homegrown activity around. So what I mean by that is essentially we have a very successful rate with retention and people coming through our business. And that has proved hugely successful for us over the last few years. But as we grow and as we win new business, etc., we're always looking to expand and also get new skill sets in. We have a range of different candidates who come forward from all over the globe, actually, but specifically with people trying to relocate from London up to Manchester, which kind of then opens up so many more opportunities for us as well.
Interesting. So next question, where do you typically advertise jobs these days? Has this changed in recent years, would you say?
Well, again, it depends. I suppose it would be interesting to hear your thoughts.
Website.
Yeah, exactly. Of course. Naturally. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this, Jenny, but I suppose our success is mainly on the website and LinkedIn. It's nothing more glitzy and glamorous than that. We do have, obviously, recruitment partners that we lean into, but we also get a lot of success from referrals as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Jenny, what's your experience?
Very similar. If we do advertise, I mean, to be honest, the first port of call is our own network, my network, the other senior teams' networks, and referrals. I think, like Mary said, referrals is always key. And if we did advertise, it would be on LinkedIn on our own page, and obviously our individual pages, and then on our website. And then there's specific pages that I also highlight on LinkedIn, like people like us, etc. But it really varies. It's a saturated market at the moment. You know, it's definitely an employer-led market. So the advertising, I'm very conscious of everyone wants to reply, everyone wants to be acknowledged. So it's quite hard sometimes to be able to do that from the volume. So often or not, I think my advice as well to candidates is keep their LinkedIn profiles up to date, because when you are looking at people, you almost want those questions answered for you when you're looking at their profile and the networking. So if there are referrals, you've got your network that's referring you. But yeah, it can vary.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good advice. And actually, I was going to go on to the volume of candidates. I mean, what are you sort of seeing? Are there any sort of numbers you can put on this? Have you advertised for a position recently where you got 100, 200 candidates or something like that? Or is it not quite as extreme as that?
Yeah, internally, not so much because I haven't been doing so much and actually advertising the roles. But externally, I hired for a client towards the end quarter last year. They actually put the post on LinkedIn and then I managed the CVs, and there was over 350 CVs for that one role.
Wow.
My role was to then reduce it down to a short list of 15 and do those initial screenings. So that volume was insane. It took a long while to go through them all and again make sure that everyone was communicated to. So it can be really high. Like I say, it is saturated, but equally, you know, hopefully those hiring managers will either get through that volume or they'll go out to an external partner, like Mary said.
Interesting. I wonder, of those, say, 350, what proportion would you say broadly were sort of total no-hopers in terms of this role? In other words, how much of them would just
I know what you
fall
mean.
through?
There were some random
Yeah.
ones, random ones in there. One thing I would say is that LinkedIn doesn't really allow you to put the salary. So I was getting people with literally different from up to 70K, varying different salary expectations. I would say there was really good caliber, and this was almost disheartening because it was good that the caliber was there, but there were so many good CVs. You literally had to be quite brutal with if you didn't have exactly X, Y, Z and really be picky, whereas usually would have probably put some people through. But because it was such a high volume, I had to be quite harsh in what I was kind of letting go through and what I wasn't. So yeah, but there was definitely there's good candidates out there looking for work within our space for sure.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Mary? Is that what you found?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's so funny how the cycle of our industry just goes round, isn't it? I mean, if you go back to COVID days or post-COVID, there was just a lack of people on the market. And that was such a transformative time, I think, for the industry in terms of talent. Salaries were suddenly jumping up, expectations, perks were suddenly, that I felt at that point that we were very much being interviewed rather than us interviewing. And now, kind of fast forward a couple of years, it's completely opposite. And as Jenny says, the market is saturated. So, depending on what role it is, depends on the volume. But there is an enormous increase in volume of CVs that we're getting through. And as Jenny says, again, a really high quality of CVs. So it's very hard to go through that process to get the real candidate, the true candidate. I do think within our industry, there's a lot of blurred lines. And the language we speak have a lot of interpretations. So it's very difficult to create, as you say, with the limitations on LinkedIn as well, like very specific roles. So that kind of invites an influx of all types of variations of CVs and people to apply. So it's down to ourselves then to really streamline that through a very rigorous process to make sure that we are getting the right people through the door, because essentially you don't want to waste people's time and vice versa. But yeah, it's strange how it changes so very rapidly as well. And there are a lot of people out on the market at the moment who are wanting to come into agency world. As I mentioned before, people wanting to relocate, people wanting to come from in-house, or people wanting to go from freelancing into more permanent agency roles. So we're kind of in this position at the moment where there's a lot of talent in the market.
Yeah. And I think also just to add to that, because there is not as many roles, people are, like you say, playing their hand to all their different skill sets, where usually they would have had one wheelhouse. But as to your point, Mary, the blurring of the lines, that's totally our mantra with regards to every audience is the same audience. So when we're hiring, people are like, well, what are you really looking for? And it's like, well, we'd like you to be a bit of a unicorn, actually, because our work is so varied, tapping into, we don't have silo teams at Blurred. There's not like silo skill sets. Of course, people have a background with certain skill sets, but it is very much talking to those audiences across those different accounts. So it does make it hard because there are people that come through who have got brilliant CVs, but they may have only one particular discipline. And we're almost looking for that varied discipline now.
It's a really good point, isn't it? And actually, it comes on to what I was going to ask next about the things that really stand out for you from a candidate. I mean, would it be possible to pick maybe 2 to 3 examples each that you think really, really sort of sort the wheat from the chaff, for want of a nicer expression?
For me, I think it's important, like CVs are a piece of paper. So we now have the luxury of LinkedIn with regards to, you can kind of see someone's profile, the activity that they've been doing, part of the groups that they're in. You can kind of get a bit of a full picture, whereas a CV is still a piece of paper. Of course, it's detailed. But I would always say it's really important to have your CV pretty much mirrored onto LinkedIn, consistency-wise. There's a story to tell, but clear and precise, and also just being able to really explain when you're speaking to either myself or a recruiter or whatever, to really be able to explain your past roles in detail with accuracy, because it just shows confidence, it shows knowledge. Knowledge is power, but it also just shows that kind of confidence and trust point. And I think transparency as well. Like, I try and be as transparent with people as much as possible when I'm speaking to them. I'll immediately say, there's not a role right now, but let's have a chat anyway. Let's just have a chat and meet for future. They may well have got a role down the road and they may not be available at that point, but I think it also shows on the other side as well. Yeah, that's my kind of take on the main areas. What about you, Mary? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Completely echo all of that. I think maybe one of the things that we look for as well is confidence. I think that's really important trait that we probably don't talk enough about, that people need to come in confident in what they do. As Jenny was just saying, there's so many blurred lines. There are people who are wanting to prove themselves. And I think it's actually just self-belief. I think it's very, very important, and really believe in the work that you're doing and what that you've done, your experience, and what you can bring to the table as well. I think also, just slightly left field, one of the things that we've noticed a lot recently is the use of AI on a negative and a positive. The negative side is when people use AI as a tool to probably give them a skill set that they might not have, whether it be writing or presentations or things like that. But actually what we're really looking for is the positive side of AI, because we are looking for that all of the time in terms of innovation and the embracing of where this technology is taking us. And so people are bringing AI, and we're seeing more and more of it, to the table and looking at it as a positive and how it can enhance their job and enhance us as an agency as well. So innovation, I suppose, is probably what I'm getting to is people bringing new thoughts, new ideas to the table, because when you've got quite a saturated market, you do need to stand out, and you need to bring an element of future-proofing us as a business, especially in our competitive nature of what we do as well.
Yeah, no, really good points. And actually, it'd be good to ask you about AI as well, Jenny. Have you noticed particular trends with that in terms of candidates? Are you can you spot an AI CV a mile off? Or do you think it's a good thing that it's being used more?
Sometimes you can. I mean, I'm not an expert in AI at all, and I won't ever claim to be. I think us as a business, we have every other week we have fireside chats where we're constantly training and teaching each other, and we have certain external people as well as internal doing sessions. And AI, of course, has been a few of those. We understand the importance of it. We understand what it can bring, but we certainly don't lean on it. Being a management consultancy, being the work we do, our clients pay us to think and actually, bring to the table our knowledge and insights. I would say on the candidate side, I'm not hiring for AI specific skill sets, no, because of that reason. But it's not to say that it would be a no in future. I think the individuality, like you say, Mary, is really important that you bring to the table. And also, from a societal point of view, we're very keen on always hiring different people, whether that be geographically, societally, so we can offer our clients different viewpoints from different life skills. So AI is a tricky one. I'm still getting my head around it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think we all are.
I think we always will be.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think we ever really mastered it.
Yeah. Okay, well, sort of flip side next. What are the sort of red flags for you when it comes to CVs? What are the things where it's like, no, next?
Well, there's a few.
Go on, Mary, you lead.
Well, I suppose it's just on the back of what Jenny said, is like, if you haven't got your LinkedIn right, if you haven't got your CV right, if you can't get the basics, then it's an absolute no-go. And you'll be surprised at how many applicants we get that just kind of don't get to the starting line because of that. Another one is, again, could be slightly controversial, I suppose, is unrealistic salary expectations for the level that we're hiring at. Again, I think the market is it's just unprecedented at the moment in terms of where people are at, roles that are being applied for, and the level that people are expecting their salary to be at for that role. I think that's a bit of a non-starter before we even get to that stage as well.
Do you advertise your salaries, Mary, when you're doing jobs?
We'd like to. It's a good point, actually. It's something that we've had a lot of debate around because there's pros and cons to it. But I think it's a positive thing to do as well, because it does set out expectations and it stops wasting time, which you mentioned before. I think transparency is absolutely key. I think there is a bit of a negativity talking about money as well, which I don't think there should be at all. I think people need to be very, very honest, because I think it's fair on both sides. So it depends on the role, is to answer your question. But if we can, we will. What about yourself?
I think everything you said, I agree with as far as the CV and LinkedIn. I think where our values that we kind of talk about a lot is around non-hierarchical. So when I meet someone, I'm always thinking about a culture ad. This is, obviously they've got past the CV point and they've actually been approached. But it's certainly, we're a business of 30. We want to make sure every hire is right and it fits into the team. Not necessarily, we don't want the same people, as I mentioned before, but it's around that everyone having a voice, everyone kind of having an opinion. So, and it works really well. The juniors all the way to the seniors work closely together. They teach each other and add value in different ways. So for us, that's a real positive if I can get that person in. But as a red flag, equally, if there's if someone's quite clearly got an ego or very set in their ways or not open to kind of changing their way of working to join the business, then that would be a no for us. But that's more of a personal, I think.
It's such an important part. Like, culture is everything, isn't it? It's absolutely everything. And if you meet somebody, it's difficult to get that sense when you're looking on a CV or a LinkedIn or whatever it may be. But seeing that moment that people walk in, culturally they fit, then it's an absolute winner. Like, you can make the other stuff work. If they don't, then obviously it's not really going to be beneficial for anybody. But yeah, I totally agree. Making sure that somebody fits in with you, or the culture of the business, or the culture, what it's, every point from the moment you walk in to every moment to when you leave the door has to be right. Culture is everything. If we make sure that everybody who comes into our business fits with us as a business, is hugely, hugely important. And it's something that we work incredibly hard on. As I said, our business has grown quite significantly. We were about 30, 40 people for a long time, Jenny, and I know the importance of that and how special that is. When you grow to 50 people, 60 people, and then suddenly you're hitting that 100 people marker, it completely changes in terms of how you run the business. And what always keeps is that essence of culture. That has to be the number one priority for us. So how we do that changes, and how we hire changes now, really, according to that. But we're always wanting to run our business so that we have that mindset of being around that 30, 40 people, because it's a very special time when you are that, because you are one, really, and you're all very much working for each other and then leaning on each other, etc.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this year we'd really like a year of growth. Up to, 18 months ago, obviously the market went crazy and everyone just held on tight, didn't they? So we're hoping that this year will be a year of growth again and start to move up. But it's a really good point of how it does change as you start getting into that second band.
It's very hard.
Yeah, very much so. The one thing I would say is, at the moment, and I hope it does continue, we are very much like a family team. Nick is amazing. Our senior team are amazing, as are the rest. And we created something last year called The Deal, which was almost setting out a kind of, you do this for us as an employer and we'll do this for you as an employee. So it's a really nice way to show how we will respect the team and the business will respect the team if we, equal measures. That's worked really well. Yeah, equal partnership, exactly that, which has been nice. We're always constantly trying to think of how we can evolve that and keep that.
Good. I wanted to go back to something that was mentioned earlier on, actually, about unrealistic salary expectations. I guess my question is, how common is this? And do you think it's more common now than it was? Do you think there's a bit of a misalignment between what candidates expect and what's realistic?
I'm not massively seeing that, but again, I don't know if that's so. The role that I mentioned earlier that I was hiring for last year and helping a client externally, they didn't put the salary expectation on. So people were sometimes inflating that because they wanted room for manoeuvre and to be able to negotiate down if needed. It wasn't clear about what benefits were on offer. So again, as a package, we're always offering as a package, not just a basic. Like we always advertise, if we do advertise a role, a job spec, we'll put all our benefits on the bottom of that spec. So you can almost see that this would be the basic. We do actually put our salaries on, partly because we're committed to from our blueprint and B Corp status, but equally we do quite like the transparency side. So I don't know. I don't think, looking at salary surveys this year, have they increased? Not particularly across the board, across the industry. I just think, the cost of living is important to people. And I know we're going to cover about what candidates looking for, the flexibility and salaries are important. People need to live and it is tough at the moment. So, I think there's always room for negotiation, but I've not massively seen that. So maybe Mary, you can answer a little bit more if you've been hiring a bit more recently in-house. Don't know.
What we find is there's some very clear lines certainly within the PR world, in the sense that you have your traditional roles that kind of sit very firmly into those kind of clear salary brackets, which are, as you say, Jenny, are going up, and rightly so, because obviously generally the cost of living is increasing at a significant rate. I think it's more those blurred roles where it can be less specific. And so that's when it's the kind of a role for us, like the agency like ourselves, to be completely transparent up front, to say what those expectations will be even before we get through any other conversations. But yeah, I think it's down to the fact that I think there's a lot of people on the market at the moment. I think, dare I say it, that recruiters have a little bit of responsibility within this as well, in terms of inflating salary brackets. So I think it's very important that you work with a very trusted partner when you're going through a recruitment process. Trust is really important within that, to make sure that everybody is very transparent. I think there's been lots of times where we speak to a candidate and we speak to the recruiter, and the candidate's salary expectations are very different to what the recruiters have told us. And I think that can be quite frustrating, because that can create a bit of inefficiencies, and it's, again, not very fair to the candidate themselves. So, yeah.
Interesting. Thank you. Jenny, while we're on the topic of recruiters, do you have any particular views on recruiters? Do you use them much? And what's your sort of take on?
That's my background, John. Always have a love for. I haven't needed to, because I've bought into the business to hire for Blurb, to hire for our clients. I have used a couple of external partners that I've known, more independent, to be honest, that I've known for a while if I've struggled with a role, but that was a good kind of couple of years ago. I haven't recently, because we lent into the ESG sustainability piece quite early on in the business. I was then also speaking to some recruiters at that time. But, I would absolutely go out to a recruiter if needed. But being my role in-house at an agency, it's not a natural, I'd obviously try and fill a role myself first, unless it's really niche and it's something that my network is just not covering, or the senior team's network isn't covering. So yeah, absolutely. Everyone has a role to do. But I think, like you say, I think it needs to be with someone that's trusted, who's a realistic, and who understands how the market is working properly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on slightly, it'd be good to know about the biggest changes in the type of applicants you're getting, and frankly, the quality of them. Would you say this has changed particularly in any way recently?
From my side, purely because the business, the business has changed from, not changed, but it's kind of evolved over the 7 years, which has been, strategic comms is our thread. That has been and always will be. And then we've got the creative campaigning, and we've also got the sustainability consulting. So often or not, depending on the work that we have coming through and the briefs that we've got on, I may need to upskill that piece, that area, with additional support or new hires, particularly with that skill set. And I guess as we have started moving, we've kind of lent back into more the brand campaigning and activation the last couple of years. I would say I've been speaking to more people in that creative delivery space of recent probably the last 15 months or so, rather than the consulting ESG technical kind of people. But they are always there. This is where our cohort model works really well, is that we've got people at our fingertips if needed. So that's how it's changed for me personally, but that's also because the change and the movement in the business. And the quality of candidates is great, I think. There's still brilliant candidates out there, just to answer that point. Yeah.
Great. And Mary, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. The quality of the candidates is superb at the moment. As I say, it's strange how it swings and roundabouts with that, but there's some brilliant people out in the market. But I agree with Jenny. I suppose we've had a higher volume of applicants, I think, more than ever for our kind of social media specific roles or our creative vacancies, which I think probably 12 months ago, there wasn't such good quality caliber out in the market. And again, we're getting a real variation of where those people are based. Because we offer agile working, you don't obviously need to be based in Manchester to work for Tangerine. And there's a lot of we do, certainly in the last 12 months, and certainly the last 6 months, actually, a real shift in people moving out of London, either coming back to family or just wanting to relocate. It's just opening up the door to even more talent, which is hugely exciting for us.
Great. Okay, and it will be good to talk about, go back to something that was mentioned earlier on about the sort of typical demands you're getting from candidates. I get the point that there's probably a bit less of this now that the market is as it is, but obviously things like flexible working, maybe training, career path, soft perks, inverted commas, that sort of thing. What kind of trends are you seeing there?
Definitely flexible working and hybrid working still. We have an office based in Clerkenwell. It's physically only open 2 days a week. So if you're on a 5-day contract, we ask people to come in on the Wednesday and Thursday to create that culture, to make sure hopefully people are sat together a little more. But we're a big believer in hybrid working. We always kind of have been, and always I think we will do, as far as I know. And I definitely think that's still on people's agenda. I think there are some businesses, of course, that are asking for more office time now than they were 3 years ago. That's having an effect on people's lifestyles, their situations, and possibly being able to apply for those roles. Like, I spoke to someone in Spain last week who's been remote working for 3 years. She said she has never seen such a volume of roles that are now demanding you to be in the office, which is quite interesting. And yeah, that seems to be becoming more of a thread, but people, I think, are still pushing back with that. From our perspective, from a Blur perspective, I think we're very adult to adult. We kind of trust our team. Everyone does their thing. Everyone's got their own stuff going on. Like, I'm down near Brighton, do 4 days a week. I go into office 1 day a week. It's very flex, but the work gets done. And that's why we, do deliver good work, because people work really hard when within their core hours. So I think that trust, I think the flexibility, of course, as I said, we kind of detail our benefits. We offer great benefits because we don't necessarily chuck out bonuses all the time. So it's very much, this is a package. But yeah, I think the trust, the one-to-one, and I think the transparency as well is key for us.
Great, thanks. And Mary, how about you? What sort of demands are you seeing? Maybe demands is a bit strong. Requests is perhaps better.
Requests, yeah. So I suppose the flexible working thing is probably the biggest thing within that. We became employee owned about 7 years ago now, just over 7 years ago. And at that time, actually, it's very important that we listened to the team and found out what everybody really want. And at that time, agile working was a request even then, pre-COVID. So I suppose that's always been part of our DNA, agile working. We've not always had people in the office 5 days a week. Obviously, COVID has made that a norm now. But within that, and as Jenny referenced, it's very important to try and find the balance within that, because obviously you want people in the office to learn and to be supported and support as well. So our office is open 5 days a week, but people choose when they're in and out. We ask people to come in between 2 and 3 days a week, and that works really well for us. So I think that's a given. That's just a norm for us now. But what we are finding is people wanting to do 4 days a week. And that might be because we're hiring for senior positions as well. And, people have the balance of trying to do family and work, which is totally understandable. And I am one of those people. But I think one of the things that really, really important is this kind of, we referenced it before, but this strong well-being culture is vital for people. Increasingly, I think candidates are prioritising well-being and that work-life balance, and it really plays a factor into jobs that they're going to apply for. But equally, it's a factor for who we're attracting at the same time. So we do lots of things, like we put on breakfast every single morning for people, which is a hugely important thing. I can't tell you how much egg chat there is in our office, day in, day out. There's a lot of egg chat. And so it's simple things like that, which just really go a long way. There's an enormous amount of, well, we call them perks, but they don't really feel like they're perks now, because they're just part of the day-to-day that we have within our business, that we work, and our people and performance team work really, really hard on making sure that we nourish that, and we really make sure that people feel the value of that as well. So I think that's normally the question that people ask. Because we're employee owned, we give a profit share every year, so everybody gets a percentage of the profit without doubt. It doesn't depend on what position you are within the business, and that's, you know, just a given. But those are the kind of questions that we get asked back: as what can you offer me? How can you make me feel that I want to be here and I really, really have a full lengthy career with you guys? And as again we did mention before, it's about a partnership. We really, really invest in our homegrown and making sure that the people stay with us a long time, and we have a lot to support that as well.
I think just to add to that, Mary, on the wellness side, I totally agree. I think it's so important from the junior end up into the senior as well. One thing that we do, which might be of interest for other agencies to kind of to maybe look at, is when people join, we ask them for their 5 personal needs. So we kind of ask, what is it that was going to make, us to be able to support you at work, to make your success, make you a success in the business. And that can be from going to the gym or clocking off at 5 to go and get the child from childcare, whatever it is. All of that is pretty standard again anyway. Just to add on to that, Mary, with wellness, when someone starts in the business, we ask them for their 5 personal needs. And that is essentially so we can support them and make set them up for success in the business. And that can be anything from going to the gym first thing in the morning or lunchtime, collecting child from childcare, etc. So I think it's received really well. We share it with the whole team. If they want certain things that are left private, we just share it with the senior management. And we also kind of recognise, Nick is neurodiverse, our CEO. We have a lot of neurodiversity in the team. So again, we kind of make it very open and talking about it all the time. So we hope people will tell us so we can support them and create a wellness plan as well.
And I think rightly so, that's the expectation of the norm now, isn't it? The industry has had to catch up with that quite quickly. But our industry is hard, right? There's high expectations on what we do. It's not necessarily just a very simple 9 till 5:30 day, and you need to offer those things back in order to get the best, in order to get
and
this long-term, long-term
people.
Partnership. And I think, I can pat ourselves on the back. We've done that well. We've got 59% of our team is over 2 years tenure now, and 18% is over 5 years, which I think's quite considerable stats really in our industry, as we know, in agency world, I should say. So yeah, it's something that we really focus on, because it is about teamwork at the end of the day, isn't it? Giving back.
Okay, so back to the question of what the employers are looking for, specifically academic qualifications. How important are those to you? And if they are important, which ones are more important than others, really? Do you think sort of specific comms degrees, postgraduate, undergraduate, or any particular types of A-levels or anything like that? What are the sort of...
We're both kind of shaking our head, aren't we? Less so. I think it's less so now than it ever used to be. Many years ago when I started doing recruitment, which is way too long ago, it was slightly higher on the agenda. I think in the UK market, it's very different to the US market, for example. They do look for qualifications, and the larger organisations absolutely look for those high-level qualifications. But personally, we look for experience, and that's from culture, life skills, as well as, of course, delivering the role. But definitely less so. Not ruled out, but I think it is harder for grads to find roles at the moment, purely again because of the market. But yeah, it's certainly not a prerequisite that I look for when hiring.
Yeah, completely agree. It's not even a thing. Obviously, it's equal path, university degrees or not university degrees. That's really where the Juice Academy was born out of, because there was this recognition to create more equitable pathway for people who just don't get the opportunity to get into our industry. And so we set that up back in 2013. That's like, was it 12, 13 years ago? That's quite frightening how long ago it was. But since then, I think there's over 700 jobs that have been placed now across the Northwest for people who are going through the apprenticeship scheme. And that's getting people into PR and social media, something we're immensely proud of. And, just to reference, I mentioned it before, but that's really where our homegrown ethos comes from. We've got one guy with us who came through the very first apprenticeship scheme back in 2013. He's now one of our lead strategists. We've watched him kind of grow professionally. He's now a dad and got his own mortgage and is a real proper grown-up, as we call him. And he came straight from school and just saw it as an opportunity, an absolute raw talent that we've just tried to nourish and grow. And we've done that for over hundreds of people. So absolutely, we don't even look at the qualifications. But as Jenny says, if you do have a degree, that's great as well. We all, you're all on an equal path. Or equal footing.
Interesting, thank you. And diversity, I know it's again referenced a bit earlier on, but it'd be good to talk about the main steps your agencies take to ensure you get a diverse set of candidates applying, being successful. I appreciate this is a huge area in itself and probably only so much detail we can go into, but a couple of top line sort of ideas would be really useful.
Diversity is absolutely embedded in what we do as a business. And, like you say, trying to acquire talent within a diverse pool across all areas of diversity is always a challenge. And it's always also find it really quite exciting because it can vary. We use a lot of content. We try and showcase a lot of content of what we do with regards to us as a business. Like I'm Not a Typo campaign, which was our self-initiated campaign, which we're trying to change the tech world for misspellings of names, because immediately that kind of showcases what we are intrinsically all about, but also because we find it really important. So I think sharing content is key for us to try and share the love of what we do, to attract those people and kind of highlight what we do. And of course, then reaching out to certain demographics on different platforms. And again, referrals. I always think referrals and people often or not come through that space.
Yeah, is it the same for you, Mary, when it comes to...
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've had, what we kind of put into place again about 5 years ago, was this anonymous CV screening, where we implement anonymous CV screening, where we essentially just remove the demographic details like gender and names, etc. And that kind of eliminates an unconscious bias, which has been brilliant for us actually, and has worked really well. And then we have like an inclusive recruitment support, etc. And I think it's something that I just think is so important. You just got to constantly be working at as an agency. So conscious, I suppose, that you don't want this to be a trend. We've got to be making sure that we are holding a mirror up all of the time, questioning ourselves. What can we do more? How can we learn from this? What is our role within the industry to do our reputation better? Because I don't think PR marketing as a whole has a great reputation. So I don't think we've ever got it completely right. I think there's always more. I think Jenny Blood are doing a fabulous job on this. I think, you should be super proud because it's amazing, something that we massively champion. But I think the whole industry just needs to continually work harder, and it needs to be on the agenda all of the time. And I say, not just a trend, not fad. It's just, this is something that's real and it's got to be worked at continuously.
I'm conscious we're running out of time, such a good conversation, but I just wanted to ask a few more things if that's okay. I'm really interested in how you typically conduct interviews. Do you find it's a mixture of sort of in-person video, maybe video at the start, in-person later? How many kind of stages? What's your sort of preferred way of doing that?
It's not really that complicated, I suppose. It's a two-stage process essentially, and again, it's all dependent on the role. Okay, so this isn't one size fits all, but essentially, it normally starts with a Teams call, which just to kind of gauge culture, personality fit, experience, etc. And then the second stage will be face-to-face interview. We try and we're quite strict with that, really, in the sense that we don't want to have laborious processes for people, because we know how much time could be wasted within all of this. It's kind of run quite efficiently by our people and performance team.
And from our side, again, I generally do all the screenings, which is like a half-hour screening online. And then two of the team, we have 3 stages. 2 of the team will meet first stage, which will be very much, again, around skill set, culture add. Second stage will be a task. Depending on the level, will depend on that task. Ideally, they would come into the office and do some face-to-face. But again, the way we're set up, we have one of our partners that lives in Paris. We are dotted around. And then lastly, we have Nick Porter, who's our non-exec director, who is amazing, very much embedded in our business. After 6 months, if someone is employed, they get bi-weekly coaching with Nick, and that's a personal one-to-one private coaching. So Nick always interviews as a third stage every candidate just from a culture and values perspective to make sure we're fitting with their values and vice versa. So it is 3 stages, but it sounds long, but we don't drag it out, that's for sure.
Great, thank you. And final question, I want to ask for overall, what are your top 2 tips, would you say, for PR job seekers at the moment, looking to find roles in the industry?
I would say network. I would say if you're out there looking for work, like I'm speaking to loads of people at the moment from a post I put up about just generally overview of the industry. And there's some really good people. And I'm just saying network, make sure your LinkedIn's up to date, make it obvious if you are looking for work, make it clear on there on your about piece. And the networking, I just think always lands well with referrals. And just get that CV matched with that LinkedIn piece. And I think just try and be part of other groups, try and be commenting and being involved and being seen online as well.
Great, thanks. And Mary?
Definitely agree with that. Networking is vital. I think bring personality too. I know it sounds so basic and something you just think is a given, but it's so important. Personality, passion for the industry, just showcase the love for what you want to do and what you want to do within that partnership as well. That's really, really important to bring to the table and can be literally what sets yourself apart from other people. I think, as I say, we talked about a lot of people having the same experience on paper, but that moment when you kind of walk into the room, that's your time to shine and really showcase who you are. I suppose another one would be, I know you talked about specialism and generalists, but I think it's important to have a specialism as well and to really lean into that. Don't lose your skill set really and be proud of that. I think that it can be another opportunity for you to kind of like stand out from other people and not shy away from that as well.
Yeah, I think going above and beyond in this tough market goes a long way.
Okay, that's all the time we have. Thanks so much to Mary and Jenny for sharing your insights. Once again, if you've been on the other side and looking for a job in PR recently, we'd love to have you on as well. Email me, john.harrington@haymarket.com. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review wherever you access PR Week's Beyond the Noise podcast. So until next time, thanks for listening and goodbye.